Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 683 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Do always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, and it is a bit of a gray day here at the Beaver Lodge. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Understandably so. As you know, the last 2 mornings he did join us live from Yellowknife, and it was rather early, and he had to check out to make sure that he got enough sleep. And he's now in the middle of the work commitments for which he is there, because it is a bit of a working vacation, and so you don't have to make sure that you are properly rested in order to, being able to do the work for which he was brought there to do. So I'm though I miss him, I'm glad he is taking time for self-care and making sure that he gets a good night's sleep before he needs to take on the day. Hopefully, he might be able to join us later on during the show for a couple of minutes. You never know. But for the moment, it's just you and me, kids and cubs. So we'll have a good time. Hold on, just have a sip of water here because I started with a little bit of a frog in my throat, as you could tell. There we go. All right, kids and cubs. Well, we do not have a Yellowknife update for you, clearly, because Mr. Grizzly is not with us. However, kids and cubs, we do have a little bit. Well, first of all, before we go into that, I need to finish the intro, right? A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. No. God, I keep on forgetting. No, there's darn. I apologize again to the sponsor. Again, for those who haven't been following us for a while, we had one of the names of our sponsors have changed names, and every now and then I keep on going into the old intro by rote, and yeah, didn't. And sometimes I forget if I said the right one, but I believe it is psychictarot.ca. And yes, psychictarot.ca, I am correct because it used to be canadiantarot.com. There we go. Okay. Oh boy, we're off to a good start today. See, this is why I need my Mr. Grizzly. I'm not doing so much on my own, and I can actually remember what it is I need to say. So yes, psychictarot.ca. We do have a fun show. We have an interesting show for you today because we will be talking a little bit about how Mark Carney is moving ahead with some of his promises, and a couple of things that are happening in conservative land that might be signs emerging that Canadians could be tiring of their act just a little bit. So we'll look at some polling information, a couple of other things. There's also something we wanted to bring you yesterday that we didn't have time to get into about uh, Pierre essentially being an unserious person making some rather unserious comments. But there's a lot more today. Since Mr. Grizzly is not here, Kits and Cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I'm doing okay. I've had a bit of a dip the last 2 days. Nothing terrible, just a bit sad and low energy, and of course, very hot weather does that to me. And of course, Canada Day is my second favorite day of the year after my birthday, and I was limited in what I could do this year, so I was a little bummed because of that. But I woke up feeling much more chipper today, so I'm going to ride that wave. And since we're here, let's see who else has joined us from the DAMFAM if I'm looking to the magic monitor here. Let's see, I see Kit Elaine and Kit Kat W. Good morning to both of you. Kit Uncover, hello. Thank you for all that you do for us. We see who else. Kit Saucy. Mama's doing well, I hope. I know you are very much looking forward to going home because the hospital is not necessarily the best place. But just be kind to yourself, and the day will come soon enough. But yes, I can understand how it's frustrating to still be there if you don't want to be and you're just looking to be home. Kit Frankie saw that, got thinking that you got the job because the interview went very well. I was going to ask you about an update for that, so glad you already supplied it, and I'm very, very happy for you. I'm pulling for you and sending you all the good vibes. We got Kit Argosy Acres with us. We have also, let's see, going through the list. Oh, people are already chatting a lot this morning. Kit Tavi G is with us. Good morning to you, Kit Nona Carol. I hope your birthday was absolutely delightful. That was on July 1st. And I don't know if Kit Jen was with us yesterday, but if you are with us this morning and I just haven't seen you yet, I hope your birthday was great too. We have Kit Hyper T 007, Kit Linda M with us. Good morning to both of you. Kit Toronto Dan, hey buddy, how you doing? Nice to see you. Kit PNC Bio, lovely. Glad to see you here with us this morning, always providing some great commentary. So it's nice to have you here today. Kit Ryan, hello, bonjour. Nice. I love your last name, Beau Soleil, beautiful sun, if you were to literally translate it, which definitely uh, brings a smile to my face. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, Del Sol Verde. I don't know if that's a new name for us. I don't necessarily recognize it. I don't think it's a new name, actually. I think I've seen it a couple times. I just don't particularly remember the person who is behind it because the names on the things have changed a lot, at least lately. We had a couple of shows where YouTube was changing up the handles of our listeners, and I wasn't able to make sure I wasn't able to necessarily detect who was who. But good morning. Glad that you have joined us. Let's see. Who else do we have? Miss Blue Ocean. Hello. Thank you. So glad you're here with us. Kit Jillian as well. Mr. Jim, sending lots of love to you, and hope that your mom is doing well and doing better. Um, and give my love to Mama Lori, please, as well. Let's see. Who else do we have with us? Kit Katie Canuck sliding in right at the last second for a greeting. There you go. And I think that is everyone. Yes, so far, because more of you will be joining as the show goes on. But good morning to all of you. I hope that everything is going well. Kit J. Crick, I'm going to make an exception there, sliding in as well. Kit del Sol Verde, if you are in the chat, you can give me a little more information about who you are. That would be wonderful, because I have a feeling that we have indeed seen each other before in the chat, but for some reason I'm just drawing a blank. And that might just be early morning beaver fog. All right, kids and cubs. Well, like I said, we don't have a live from Yellowknife update for us today, but there is a little bit of news from the north for our friends in Yukon or the Yukon, either is appropriate, who are watching us. The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Rebecca Alty, will be joined by Yukon MP Brendan Hanley and Territorial Cabinet Minister John Stryker, I'm guessing his name is, for an infrastructure announcement live in Whitehorse, and that will be at 10 a.m. this morning. So it'll be interesting to see what it is that the government has going on for the north here. Okay. And of course, we haven't talked a lot about wildfires lately on the show, just because there's been so much other news. But there is a situation emerging in the town of Lytton again. These already British Columbia with regard to wildfires. There have been the BC Wildfire Service says that the Nikaya fire is which is one of two blazes burning near Lytton in the Fraser Canyon, is now being held at 5.7 hectares and is unlikely to grow further. A second fire north of Lytton is spread across 100 hectares and is out of control. There are about 80 active fires in BC, mostly in the northeast, and we have a report here from the CBC's Shurya Kastri, I'm going to guess, is how the name is pronounced, but the proper pronunciation will obviously be included in the report. That's a new name for me, so I'm not quite sure what it is, how it is pronounced exactly, and hopefully I will learn it, and then if I need to use it in the future, I will get it correctly. But yes, just a little bit of news from there. And again, kits and cubs, if you are affected by wildfires, that you have an emergency bag nearby so that you can get out with make sure that you have some water and some food and your important documents and all that type of stuff with you so that you're ready to go, so that if you need to evacuate, you can get out as quickly as possible and not put rescue teams and other people providing services at risk by having to tell you twice or having to double back and make sure that everybody is gone. Also, kits and cubs, if you are in that area, or if you know people in that area, please do remind them of the service of cbc.ca/light, L-I-T-E, CBC Light, in case they have low battery or low bandwidth and need to keep up to date with the latest information. That's a website that's provided by our national broadcaster that allows people in such situations to be able to make sure that they can find out what the latest news around them and what the latest orders and state of conditions are while they are away from home. And especially because you don't want to be cut off from information in an emergency. So I hope everybody is keeping safe. And here we have it for you, kids and cubs, that report about what is transpiring currently in Lytton, British Columbia.
The public's mind is put at ease knowing that this is now being held.
BC Wildfire Service says the two small fires across the Fraser River from Lytton are under control and crews are now focused on mop-up. The fire was burning out of control as of Tuesday night.
The Nakia Creek wildfire is currently 5.73 hectares in size and not expected to grow outside its current perimeter.
The Nicola Thompson Regional District had issued an evacuation order for two properties nearby, which has now been rescinded. But a separate wildfire about 16 kilometers north of Lytton is causing fresh concern. The Isman Creek fire has quadrupled in size from 25 to 100 hectares just overnight and is growing in size.
We saw over 30 degrees in temperature yesterday and not a lot of recovery overnight. We've also seen pretty decent winds through the fire center, and that's expected to continue for the next couple of days.
The fire has shut down Highway 12, prompting evacuation orders for 3 nearby properties and alerts for 9 others. Interior Health has suspended services at Lytton's primary care clinic, and banks in the area have also closed.
The Highway 12 corridor is an essential corridor for a lot of our resource staff in the communities. The nearest hospital to Lytton, the nearest emergency room is Lillooet.
The fire comes almost exactly 4 years after another blaze destroyed 90% of the village. Tricia Thorpe lost her home in that 2021 fire.
When it broke out on the 30th, it was pretty spectacular. That's a horrible word to use.
She says rebuilding has been painfully slow.
The properties that you see being rebuilt there are those that had replacement insurance.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the cost of rebuilding is pretty astronomical.
Meanwhile, another fire in the region near the village of Chase is also being held and isn't expected to grow. The BC Wildfire Service says all 3 fires were human-caused and is urging the public to be careful while outdoors. Shorish Chetri, CBC News, Vancouver.
So there you go, kids and cubs. And as well, we have here in the chat, we have Kit Argosy Acres informing us that a new fire has sprung up on Vancouver Island, Cowichan Valley to Port Renfrew area as well. So if you are in that area, again, please do take care. And there we go. Oh, thank you, Dessel Verdi. I was invited here by Kit Sandy from Environmental Coffee House, and bet you there. Yes, yes. Okay, that the light now goes on. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that, because I knew it was familiar somehow, but I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. All right, kids and cubs. Oh, thank you, Kit Ryan, for the compliment. Red is a great color for me. This is actually, it's interesting that it's coming across as red for you because it's actually really deep, sort of rusty orange, actually, at this end. But thank you for the compliment anyway, because if anybody tells me that something is a great color for me, well, you know. I am about the fashion, darling. And I always, and flattery will get you everywhere with the queen. So keep it coming. All right. Oh, man. So, yeah, definitely some situations there going on in Lytton. And as again, I just can't imagine the third time in several years and second time in 4 years now. That's a lot for people to go through, especially since the rebuilding is not going as quickly as one would like. So definitely please take care of yourselves. And of course, Kits and Cubs, as you know, the Red Cross is accepting donations. If you would like to help out your fellow Canadians, there's an appeal currently going on for Alberta and Saskatchewan. Not sure if one has started up for British Columbia yet. I will look into that and bring it to you in a later show if that is the case. But again, we care at Red Cross is the email address to which you can send a donation. You can go to redcross.ca in order to find out more and to be able to make a donation via that way. And then again, Kits and Cubs, there is also, you can also call the Red Cross in order to make a donation that way. And the number for that, Kits and Cubs, is 1-800-418-1111. So we care at redcross.ca, www.redcross.ca, and 1-800-418-1111. All right. Moving on, kids and cubs. Let's see, what do we have for you next? Oh, yes. So, Canada Day has come and gone, and as you know, in the lead up to Canada Day, Prime Minister Mark Carney had been making a certain number of promises overall. Now, he had some overall global promises, and of course, we're seeing some progress on those things, but there were some very specific by Canada Day promises that he had made. And we just wanted to take a little check-in on that. And so did the CBC at the time. And they produced a nice little graphic for us that is very, very helpful. Well, they didn't produce it for us specifically. I mean, for us Canadians in general. We only wish the CBC was producing graphics for us specifically. But Kits and Cubs, there are 6 key promises that he made. And look The first one was removing internal federal trade barriers, which has been done. Now, of course, provinces still have to go all the way on reducing theirs, and there has been some progress, of course. There's been lots of MOUs and agreements signed, but whether or not all of that work is done, the Prime Minister has a little less control over that, other than providing some encouragement and maybe incentives or potential consequences if not. But as for the federal portion of them, the bill has passed and they have been removed. All of that has come into effect. So that has happened. Create the Canada Strong Pass, and that has already happened. Kits and Cubs. And for those who are wondering what that is, it's to help bolster our tourism industry here in Canada, because a lot of Canadians are not going to the United States, and the federal government, given the hits that our economy is taking in other areas, is trying to encourage Canadians and people from outside of Canada to make the choice to come to Canada instead. So from June 20th, it's already started, till September 2nd, 2025, you can enjoy free or discounted admission to some of the country's most iconic places. The Canada Strong Pass lets you explore the richness of the country, from museums to nature to railroads. The Canada Strong Pass is not an actual physical pass that you need to purchase or sign up for or collect. You just simply visit any participating Parks Canada site, museum, gallery, or via rail to benefit from free admission or discounts. And for example, uh, like I mentioned here, you can get free admission to all visitors to national parks, national historic sites, and national marine conservation areas administered by Parks Canada, and a 25% discount on camping fees. Free admission for children and teens aged 17 and under, and a 50% discount for young adults aged 18 to 24 for access to national museums and the Plains of Abraham Museum in Quebec City. If you're riding via rail, free travel for children aged 17 and under when accompanied by an adult, and a 25% discount for young adults aged 18 to 24. And participating in provincial territorial museums and galleries will be offering free admission for children and a 50% discount for young adults aged 18 to 24. The pass is not only available to Canadians, but to all visitors, whether you live in Canada or come from abroad. It's an invitation to experience Canada's cultural and natural richness. So there you go. The discounts cover admissions only, but some participating sites may include guided tours or offer special rates, so you should check with them directly. And you can take advantage of the pass offers as many times as you like during the summer period until September 2nd inclusively. There we go. Oh, and of course, as always, these discounts may not be combined with other promotions unless noted by participating partners. There. So that has definitely been instituted, and that is on its way. And then we have the GST exemption on new homes that has passed through as well, with legislation as well. The removal of the consumer carbon tax, the legislation for that has passed as well. Now, also promised by Canada Day was a middle class tax cut. That one has a yellow check mark, not a green one on the list, because it is in progress. The legislation has been introduced, and is being debated, but it did not pass before the House rose for the summer break. But it is underway and will be taken up again in September. So that's going on. The defense pact with the EU, it has been signed. The only reason it gets a yellow check mark is because it's been signed and not enough has transpired yet to let us know whether or not it is particularly effective. So that one, whether or not that's a green check mark or a yellow check mark for you, depends on where you sit. It has been agreed to and it has been signed. So that would be a green check mark. But is it really doing anything as promised? That one, yellow check mark in terms of results, because just not enough time has passed yet. And then finally, there was a review of all federal departments in order to potentially find savings and other things of the like, which was promised to be completed in the first 60 days. That's just getting underway. So not completed in the first 60 days, but it is moving forward. So at some point, that will become a green check mark. So overall, pretty good, I would say. The middle class tax cut clearly was not for a lack of trying. So I'm not quite exactly sure why that one got stalled. It could have just been that there was so much to do with regard to the One Economy Act which removed the internal federal trade barriers, and a little bit of the controversy on the side of it with that had to do with determining projects of national interest and how Indigenous communities were included in that or not, as one may be looking at it depending on the perspective. And that part there uh, did require some extra time, and there was a little extra brouhaha, which may have taken time away from doing the work that needed to be done to finish getting the middle class tax cut through. But we all know that conservatives have never met a tax cut that they don't like, so it's very difficult to assume that that will not be a green checkmark relatively soon after the House resumes in September. I'm just going to take another sip of water, kids and cubs, because again, as you can hear, I have a bit of a frog in my throat today. All right, there we go. That's much better. A moist beaver is a happy beaver, as the saying goes. All right, kids and cubs. So that's the progress to date. Of course, there is much more that the Prime Minister has promised overall. And a lot of that has to do with trade diversification. And as we mentioned yesterday, ever so briefly before signing off, because we had just had so much content and we couldn't get to it, but we promised you that we would today. One of those signs of greater diversification has to do with the fact that we want to export more LNG, particularly to Asian markets. Well, after a long time of talking about it, on Canada Day, it seems, the first tanker bound for Asia after loading Canada's first cargoes of liquefied natural gas in BC. It's here. Well, it's happening. So, according to the CBC, this is Lauren, Canadian Press actually, Lauren Krugel, but as published in the CBC, this is posted on June 30th. A tanker carrying Canada's first cargoes of liquefied natural gas across the Pacific to Asian markets has departed from LNG's Canada's berth in Kitimat, British Columbia, online shipping trackers show. The gas log Glasgow was loaded with LNG produced in British Columbia, a spokesperson for the project said on Monday. Kitimat Mayor Phil Gurmuth said it's been a long journey, about a decade, to see the startup of a project he says will bring a long-term economic boost to the region. Quote, LNG Canada put an extreme amount of effort and resources into making sure, even years before their final investment decision, that the negative impacts on the community would be as small as possible, Gurmuth said in an interview. And so we're very thankful for that. For a town of less than 9,000 people to have over 7,000 people rotating in and out of a project right in your community, they did an outstanding job of protecting the community during that. British Columbia Coast pilots said 2 of their members boarded the tanker near Triple Island on the remote northern BC coast and navigated the vessel on a 15-hour, nearly 300-kilometer journey to Kitimat. The arrival of the gas log Glasgow and, well, this is a quote here, the arrival of the gas log Glasgow and the LNG Canada terminal in Kitimat is a historic moment, and the BC Coast pilots are proud to have supported this milestone, said Captain Steve Kennedy in a written statement. And there's a little graphic here that shows that the LNG Canada plant will receive natural gas from near Dawson Creek, British Columbia, via the 670-kilometer Coastal GasLink pipeline in Kitimat. The LNG Canada plant will liquefy and export the gas overseas. And I'm just going to show you this visual here for those who are watching. Relatively where in the province this is located. So Dawson, let's make that a little bigger for you there, kids and cubs, so you can see it. So there you go. Dawson's Creek up here all the way to Kitimat. So that's a 670 kilometers of LNG pipeline. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm not sure if that was approved during the Trudeau era or just before, but I have a feeling that it was approved finally in the Trudeau era. But don't quote me on that. I'll need to do additional research on that just to be absolutely sure I'm giving you the proper information with regard to that. So I'm just going by memory on that one. I haven't actually double checked it yet. So let's see what else the article says. The pilots rotated shifts to ensure the The one on duty was alert throughout the voyage. They were escorted by a tug purpose-built by the High Sea Marine Company, a majority owned by the Haisla Nation. So there we go. There was some other indigenous economic activity that was able to take place because, of course, navigating those waters can be a little tricky. That was one of the major reasons for a lot of objections. So for the first the ship to be escorted by a tug that was purpose built for that, to be able to help navigate those waters is definitely a good sign that some care and attention has been put to that risk. Quote, the successful operation reflects more than 10 years of preparation and collaboration with government, industry, and coastal First Nations to ensure vessel operations are safe and to help minimize impacts on the environment and coastal communities along the route. LNG Canada is a joint venture between Shell and Malaysia's Petronas, PetroChina, Japan's Mitsubishi Corp, and South Korea's KOGAS. Its first phase is expected to produce 14 million tons of gas a year, and a second phase under consideration would double output. It has been billed by the federal government as the biggest private sector investment in Canadian history, $40 billion between the port operation, the Northeast BC gas field supplying it, and the pipeline in between. Liquefied natural gas, or LNG, is gas that has been chilled at temperatures of minus 162 degrees Celsius into a liquid state, enabling it to be transported overseas in specialized tankers. Gas produced in Western Canada could sell for a much higher price in Asia than if it were to remain landlocked, and advocates say securing new buyers would reduce Canada's reliance on the United States. Until now, Canada's only export market for its gas has been the United States via pipeline. The trade relationship between the two countries has been rattled by U.S. President Donald Trump's evolving tariffs and musings about annexing Canada. Other LNG projects under construction include Cedar LNG, a joint venture between Pembina Pipeline and the Haisla Nation, and the wood fiber LNG project near Squamish. A final investment decision has yet to be made on the Xilismus facility near the border with Alaska, a partnership between the Niska Nation, Rockies LNG, and Western LNG. LNG has been touted as a, quote, bridge or transition fuel to supplant coal as a power source in emerging economies. But Nicole Dusick, a senior policy advisor with the International Institute of Sustainable Development, said continued investment in fossil fuels puts Canada's economy, taxpayers, and climate commitments at risk. Quote, as the shift to low-cost renewables accelerates, any further investment in LNG means doubling down on a volatile industry that is already showing signs of oversupply and shrinking market opportunities, including Asia. So there we go with that information. So yes, definitely environmental concerns about how much we're going to go through that and go with that, and particularly with the additional pipelines, and with British Columbia, Alberta really pushing for an additional oil pipeline. There are even more concerns with regards to that. And of course, David Eby seemed to have been indicating more that if he was going to be open to another pipeline, it would be more an LNG pipeline than an actual oil pipeline. But he's sort of playing both sides there. He's not particularly enthusiastic about it, but also is hiding behind, if one would want to say that, or not say hiding behind, but conveniently using the fact that there currently is no oil project on the table, no proponent, nothing of the sort, to say that, I'm not sure why we're discussing this right now when we have an actual project on the table. Then, we'll discuss and we'll look at what the devil in the details would be, and then we'll see whether or not, we can approve. But word on the tweet seems to be that he's much more amenable to more LNG pipelines, and possibly to another location other than Kitimat. There's been some talk about Prince Rupert, rather than an actual oil pipeline itself. Sorry, kids and cubs. You know what I'm going to do? Actually, I'm going to just put myself on mute for a second, give myself a good cough, and maybe that will help. There we go. Hopefully, that will take care of it. All right. We've had more air conditioning on because it's been a little hotter around here, and that has probably overnight dried my throat a little. And that might be the source of my difficulties today, because I don't feel a cold coming on or anything of the sort. All right. So that's one move in terms of diversifying our trade relationships and markets for our products. That's underway. The other thing, as we mentioned, had to do with removing trade barriers. And as I mentioned when we were talking about that, there's the portion that the federal government was responsible for, and then there's the portion for which the province and pardon me. For some reason, I still don't know how to bring up an a video file without it just auto starting and starting to play sound. So that's why you get those little extra sounds coming up. Not as skilled as this as Mr. Grizzly is, but fortunately, Kits and Cubs, we do have our YouTube subscription here, and we no longer have to worry about commercials popping up. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So on this one, we have an interview with Daniel Tish, who's the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, who's giving his impressions of how this move and this promise has been fulfilled, what work there is left to do, and some of the potential benefits with regard to it. All right, I will just make sure here, Kits and Cubs, that I have the right screen. I do. Whoops. Nope, I did not. Now I do. There.
One of the signature promises of the Carney government is bringing down internal trade barriers within Canada. So just progress has been made on that front. For more on this, I want to bring in Daniel Tish in Toronto. He's the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. And Daniel, thank you for taking the time. Appreciate this.
Hi, Andrew.
So here we are, the day after Canada Day. There was a campaign promise about kind of breaking down these interprovincial trade barriers, both from the provincial governments and at the federal level. Where are we right now?
Well, I think we're in a place that, frankly, I didn't think we'd be in 6 months ago, or even a year, or certainly not a year ago, right? I mean, for decades, we've been talking about internal free trade in Canada, right? The fact that internal trade, it's like a 21% tariff that's imposed by Canada on Canada. And, estimates vary, but, somewhere between 4 to 7% of GDP could rise if we actually got rid of all these barriers, right? It means more choice for consumers and lower prices. It means for business, a bigger pool of workers, bigger markets across the country. For workers, it's going where the jobs are. And for government, it's tax revenue that they can redistribute back to support business in transition or provide services that Canadians value. And I think that, we're making some really good progress. There's still a long way to go. The federal Bill 5 passed by Parliament, it lays the groundwork, but really it's the provinces that hold the keys to unlocking Canada's full economic potential here. And the good news is we're seeing a lot of movement among the provinces, led by Ontario, which is appropriate since it's the largest economy.
And so maybe tell us a little bit more about that. What kind of deals have been made? So is there truer, freer trade between Ontario and a number of provinces or other provinces with each other today than there was a few months ago?
Well, I think what we're seeing is, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? We've taken, first critical steps on this long journey, right? So Ontario has passed legislation to remove all of its exceptions to interprovincial trade and labor mobility. So previously currently under the Canada Free Trade Agreement, provinces and the federal government have to specify and outline when there's going to be an exception to free trade. And so a classic one is alcohol, right? There are restrictions on it. It's identified as an exception. So Ontario has basically said, we're removing all of our exceptions. But of course, the job isn't done there, right? There's still obviously inconsistent standards, right? So there are literally hundreds of standards around products, around safety regulations in different industries, around licensing of professionals. So whether it's the color of a safety vest, or what should be in a first aid kit, or what are the rules governing the weights on a truck, right? There's this complex web of different standards across the country. And so the first step is saying we're removing our exceptions, right? The second step is saying we're going to recognize one another's standards, mutual recognition. But then we need the fine detail work of actually getting into the nitty-gritty, identifying the standards, identifying the barriers, and working together so that we actually are ensuring that the ultimate standards that we have in this country are high standards, as Canadians would expect and deserve.
Can I ask a simple question? I think it's kind of what people think about when they talk about this. When can people in Ontario get more BC wine at the liquor store?
That's well, and you know what? Sometimes it's the very simple examples that really drive change, right? Like the data may drive the mind, but the stories move the heart, right? And the gut. And absolutely, I think Ontario saying, we're opening up our interprovincial labor and our interprovincial alcohol market, that's a big step, right? And seeing BC and Alberta, came to a deal, to allow their consumers to sample each other's wines, to buy each other's wines. And so that's all good because in the end, consumers deserve internal free trade between Canada. We deserve a choice, the best of the best from across the country, and our businesses deserve that too.
And just finally, I know you said it's really about the provinces, but has Mark Carney, has the Liberal government, have they fulfilled their campaign promise to remove the federal barriers that were there by Canada Day, which of course was yesterday?
Well, they have, but they can't just say we're now, our job's done and we're going to go away, right? I mean, nothing in this country happens unless the federal government and the provincial governments work together, for the most part, right? It's just very difficult for things to happen, in a federation otherwise. So we need them to work together, identify where are the quick wins, right? Work with business and affected industries. We need them to set timelines, set key performance indicators, ensure that there are systems to publicly and transparently report on progress. We need to work together on standards and defining what those standards are. And let's start with priority occupations and industries. Healthcare, right? We need more health professionals. There are all sorts of shortages across the country. Let's look at construction. Can we get more skilled tradespeople and engineers going where the jobs are, because that's what will build our economy.
Daniel, good to talk to you. Thank you. Daniel Tisch is the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce.
All right, kids. So again, federal government has done its part. More work to do from the provinces. Saw some comments in the chat there with regard to the tax cut. Yes, Mark Carney did sign something, but it was the signature to allow the work on this to start, I believe, because in Canada we don't have executive orders, right? The thing with the tax cut is that in the legislation, even if the legislation clears the House, let's say in September or in October, it can be written so that it applies retroactively to July 1st. So just because it hasn't officially passed the House yet doesn't mean that it's not going to be a tax cut that doesn't come into effect July 1st. It just unfortunately can't come into effect officially until it clears the entire House and gets the signature, royal assent from this, and clears the Senate and gets royal assent from the Governor General. So it's in progress in terms of completion, but don't let to the fact that it gets completed after Canada Day concern you, because usually these types of laws are written in such a way as that when they pass, they start to apply retroactively to the date that was promised. So the people will get the benefit of the full tax cut in terms of the date, regardless of when it actually officially passes. Okay, and yes, and I saw other kids have some comments there about why not the green check mark on the Canada EU portion, because whether it's good or not is not relevant. I mean, it's relevant to us as to because we want it to be good, but it's not relevant as to whether or not the promise was kept or not. There has been an agreement, it has been signed, and that has been done. So I'm with you too. I probably would have put a green check mark there myself if I was doing the analysis, because those are two separate things. They could have made two promises, signing the pact and the pact yielding benefits. Well, then, you could put a yellow check mark on the pact yielding benefits. But, but as to whether or not the deal has been negotiated and signed, that is done. And that should get a green check mark. I agree with you, Kit PNC Bio there on that. Absolutely. Fair comment. Fair comment. So we have trade barriers. And then, of course, one of the things that we are talking about often when we're talking about this move about to diversify our trade partners and the move to diversify our economy. Well, we talked about the other day when we were talking about the decision to rescind the digital services tax that was supposed to come into effect. Noted to you that there might be a broader strategy at play that has to do with Canada coming back for it, not only on its own, but with its EU partners, because we're signatory to CETA, right? But also with our CPTPP partners, because there's been some chatter about CETA and CPTPP. Well, the EU partners, not really CETA, but they're the same partners. EU partners and CPTPP partners may be getting together to form which would be the world's largest rules-based trading bloc, and one that does not include the US or China at the moment, because they are not signatories to either of those agreements. So with this, there's a segment here in an interview that is with John Weeks, who was Canada's chief negotiator for the original NAFTA. And while I was listening to this interview, he actually broached the subject a little bit near the end, and it made my little beaver heart happy, because this is news, based on the fact that it appeared in Reuters in May that Sweden was proposing this to the EU, and based on the fact that it was China Daily that was really bringing it to the front. It didn't get much national prominence. So this is the first time I'm seeing this move mentioned in any way prominently in the Canadian media. So here we go, kits and cubs. This is, as I mentioned before, Mr. John Weeks, one of Canada's chief negotiator for the original NAFTA deal, with a few comments with regard to that portion or this development.
But I think there's this conundrum. The government has to deal with the immediate problem in negotiations with the Americans, and at the same time, we have to be working on how to reform our domestic economy, and that's obviously going ahead with what we've seen recently, and eliminating interprovincial barriers to trade, and then looking at our relationship with other countries and how we can strengthen that and improve our export prospects there. And if I might just add one other thing, I think important for Canada in this new reality is trying to make sure that we keep the multilateral trading system in the World Trade Organization as strong as possible. It still governs, as a practical matter, about 80% of world trade. And there have been some recent efforts by countries, including by the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who's called for some structured cooperation between the members of the EU and the countries that are members of the CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, the United States declined to join. And I think that this is a very good idea, because, if we can keep the multilateral system still strong and working, then eventually this is going to perhaps be a way of bringing the United States back in to the system as a willing partner. Certainly a lot of American businesses would be very interested in that possibility.
In the meantime, there's about 3 weeks left till this self-imposed deadline. What do you think is the most important thing for Canada's negotiators to do in that time?
Well, I think we need a degree of certainty. I don't know. I'm sitting here at our cottage in Georgian Bay, so I don't know exactly what's going on at the
bit more relaxing than the negotiating table, yeah.
Yes, I can watch this with a certain detachment, but I think it's certainty is the big question. If things are uncertain, then investments aren't going to be made, contracts aren't going to be concluded. People are going to be worried about their job prospects. It's going to have very damaging economic effects. So I can see why certainty is important. I would hope that those who are close to negotiating this have already sketched out some of the elements of what an arrangement that would be satisfactory to the parties would look like. We've certainly seen other cases where Trump does something very dramatic before you get to a final conclusion of an agreement. So maybe in some ways we could take the fact that, we've had this blow up in the negotiations and we patched things over somewhat as an indication that maybe we're getting close to some kind of solution.
All right. Well, listen, John Weeks, former NAFTA negotiator, thank you for taking time from your relaxing cottage to talk about trade tensions. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Catherine.
So some interesting details in there with regards to, again, the first mention of that. And this could be a way to bolster the WTO, but as you mentioned as well, this could be something that the United States will want to join at some point eventually. Some people are even talking about it as a potential substitute or replacement for the WTO, because there's a lot of bodies, a lot of nations that are not particularly happy with the way that that organization is running necessarily. And especially, I think the United States has mused about trying to blow that up too, in whatever way it can. So creating, if the United States is going to blow that up, let's say, having 80% of trade being taken care of in another block, which could be that the United States could join should ever it return to regularly scheduled programming, for lack of a better term. It's a fail-safe, right? If you see that that people are trying to blow up certain institutions, sometimes it's time to start creating new ones, so that everybody else that still wants to follow a rules-based order when it comes to trade, to have that predictability, that stability, all those things that contribute to getting direct foreign investment and big projects going ahead, that that type of environment is maintained. Well, then sometimes you got to build it from scratch. A little built-in redundancy, if you will. It doesn't necessarily have to supplant the WTO. It could complement it. But should the WTO be blown up in certain ways? And but I mean blown up, I don't mean, actually people going there and doing something kinetic, but the Americans deciding that they're going to pull out from it in some way, thus making it much less effective, so as to not create a situation where it now becomes a global free-for-all. There's many other nations that have a vested interest in a predictable rules-based order, looking to build in a parallel system that could be used to replace the existing system if the U.S. Damage is done to it in such a way that it can no longer be effective. So some decent planning, again, with regard to that. And that's sort of typical. That's a pattern. It falls in line with the pattern that we've seen so far with various nations, right? That whole rearm Europe thing is a way to switch military production and military industry, to move it away, at least for international and transatlantic business that needs to be done, a little more away from the United States and more, again, towards partners who are stable, reliable, predictable, all these words that you keep on hearing over and over again. They're there for a reason, right? Businesses, whether you're increasing a tax, whether you're not, whether you're making a move towards climate change and more money has to be going towards that, to mitigate effects or to fight the effects of it or not. Businesses, there's always a portion of businesses that will object because they'd rather keep doing things the way things are, because they don't need to incur new costs to having to transition. But if a transition there is to be, then make the rules clear, let the rules be known early, and then keep them consistent for a serious amount of time, which allows them to make that shift, because sometimes those things are like steering a ship, right? And it takes a long time. So if you're going to start getting businesses to steer the ship and then 1 or 2 years later changing the rules again, that tends to piss a lot of people off. And that does tend to affect jobs and investment. So you have to make sure that the design of these rules are done very well. And sometimes it's worth the time of taking a little extra time to do it at the front end to make sure that they remain stable and predictable for the time that is required for these industries to make the transitions that we want them to make in order for us to be able to protect our future. And whether that is, and that's true for everything, whether that's climate, whether that is, equity and diversity, whether that is changes to laws with regard to overall employment. It's still the basic foundations. You need predictability and stability over time and reliability. And if you can't provide that, that automatically affects the level of investment that is going to come. And since we're looking at making these transitions, and some of these are big, they're structural transitions in the ways that we do business for the future, because we can no longer have the luxury of being a little self-indulgent, for lack of a better word, because the United States will always be there, and it's a big market, and will always be friendly to us. We've got a wake-up call recently with regard to that. So we have to be a little more proactive in ensuring that we diversify, and that we have some redundancy, and that we have good relations with the United States where and when we can, for so long as this movement is going to exist and be making decisions recklessly that affect the entire world. But also, coming into our own as a trading nation. We have these wonderful deals, right, with the European Union countries, and we have these wonderful deals with the CPTPP countries. It's so hard for me to not say CPP because of the pension plan when I'm saying CPTPP. I keep on getting stuck on that. But with those nations, and of course, some free trade deals that we have signed recently with Indonesia, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Ecuador, and a whole bunch of other nations. But we haven't been very good at maximizing them. So we're one of the most trading nations. We're probably the most trading nation in the world in terms of the number of deals we have signed. But because the United States was always there and was just always more convenient to keep on doing business the same way, rather than laying the groundwork to be able to start doing or maximizing the amount of trade that we can do with these other nations. It was there, but we weren't maximizing the opportunity. Well, now, fortunately, at least, we've made the agreements, so there are opportunities to maximize, and we don't have to negotiate those agreements from scratch, so that it gives us a little bit of a leg up. But had we been a little more prepared, let's be honest, had a little more foresight, and weren't as self-satisfied with the slice of the market that we had, and just patting ourselves on the back and saying, well, that's good enough. We could be further ahead as well. So there was we're learning now the cost of that opportunity that we didn't take to maximize it at the time, because we were safe and secure in the knowledge that the United States would always be there. That's not the case anymore. So we do have to move with alacrity with regard to maximizing these yields, but at least the initial framework is already in existence. So that should help with doing things at speeds not seen in recent memory, or not seen before, as Mark Carney is prone to say. However, you still have to establish the relationships one-on-one between the businesses, right? So that does take some time, but the frameworks are there, and that's a positive thing. So, and again, in that comment, right, that's why John Weeks was saying not only talking about the CPTPP and Euro thing, but broader about the sort of parallel tracks that we have to be working on, right? Like as I mentioned, making sure that we have the best deal that we can get with the United States, but while very, very, very actively focusing probably even more of our attention on the diversification and establishing these new relationships and strengthening those that already exist. As well, in all of this, we have what's going on with the auto sector because that's the one of the sectors that is being hit hardest. Of course, the fisheries out east are being particularly hit hard, but those are having to do more with our trade relationship with China. And the 100, well, I'm not sure what the percentage of tariffs are, but very severe tariffs with regard to seafood and those types of products, and then out west with canola and other types of things. And there is work on that being done, but it's not getting as much attention in the press as what we're doing in the United States. One, because, and this is really weird to say, but as Kit Hugh pointed out, of the United States and China, even though China is a communist nation and a dictatorship, um, it's a rational actor for all intents and purposes, at least relatively speaking to the United States. China does make arbitrary moves now and then, but not at the rate and not at the frequency and not with the intensity that the United States does make since we've had Trump there. So there is action being done on that, but because Trump sucks up all the oxygen and keeps on throwing new wrenches that make everybody just jump and like chase him because he likes to control the narrative. That's the one that we're hearing about. But for those wondering, yeah, but what about China? There is work being done on that, but it's just not as flashy. So, but those two industries, are being hard hit. But the other one that's being particularly hard hit is the auto sector, along with steel and aluminum, of course. And with regard to the auto sector, while Mark Carney has been making some moves there, there have been some criticism, and I think that it's somewhat legitimate here, in that Mark Carney has been doing a lot to sign these big deals internationally, but not enough yet has been done at home with regard to reforms to employment insurance and what are we doing with the tariffs that we are collecting? How is that being redistributed? Is it being redistributed yet? Because people have lost their jobs now and their incomes have taken a hit now. And those programs or promises that were made to be sure that we would take care of people and take care of those industries, while the commitment is there, there hasn't been much news with regard to that and what's being done. So that's some pressure that we do need to keep up. It's something that the NDP is raising frequently for whatever bandwidth they're getting. But that is a valid concern here because there are shifts that have been shut down and people's income have been affected. And while it is easier to apply for EI and that type of stuff, there have been some minor changes. There hasn't been major changes to the amount people get. And, and to the length of time they can qualify and all those types of things structurally, such that we know that when there's a new tariff or whenever Trump decides to, he got up on the wrong side of the bed today, or someone mocked him too hard internationally, and he needs to show that he's tough, that there's a framework there. Those parts have not yet been established, and some people are wondering whether or not the prime minister might be better at doing the big deal in the big room, but doesn't necessarily have his finger on the pulse yet of making sure that the people are taken care of at the moment. So that does seem to be a gap in what we've been hearing, because there hasn't been a lot of talk about that. I cannot tell you specifically, other than the very early changes that were made, that didn't require necessarily any legislation. What else has been done? I have not seen any announcement of, we've collected this much in counter tariffs and we've dispersed this amount to the people in this sector yet. Because if that happened, I would probably be sure, as a comms person, that would be a big announcement. That there would be a lot of cameras, a lot of microphones, a lot of people standing behind the prime minister for that, and they would be making a big deal. And I have not seen that moment yet. But according here to the Canadian press, David Baxter and Nick Murray, Prime Minister Mark Carney met with automotive sector CEOs Wednesday morning to discuss U.S. tariffs and ways to protect Canadian supply chains from trade war with the United States. A spokeswoman for Let me try that again. A spokeswoman for the Prime Minister's office said the CEOs of Ford Canada, Stellantis Canada, and GM Canada met with Carney along with Brian Kingston of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. A brief readout from the Prime Minister's office said the group discussed, quote, the need to build up a made-in-Canada supply chain as well as diversify our trading partners. That's kind of broad and boilerplate there. U.S. President Donald Trump has said repeatedly that the U.S. does not need Canadian cars and he wants to see automotive companies move all production to the United States. The U.S. has imposed a 25% tariff on vehicles manufactured in Canada with a carve-out for components built in the U.S. through the highly integrated vehicle supply chain. Quote, I think it's good and useful for the Prime Minister to be meeting with the Detroit-based automakers. I think we're also hopeful that we're going to have an opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister as well, said David Adams, President and CEO of the Global Automakers of Canada, which represents 26 European and Asian auto brands, including Toyota and Honda. A lot of these companies, even though they're foreign companies, do have plants and are building their cars here. Adams said one key issue for automakers is the government's zero-emission vehicle mandate, which is set to kick in next year and was the target of recent Conservative attacks in the House of Commons. Canada's auto manufacturers have called on the government to repeal the mandate. Electric vehicles remain more expensive than their gas-powered equivalents, and sales fell in the winter after the federal $5,000 vehicle rebates ran out of funding. So here, again, it's from the business industry, we keep on getting these calls to repeal certain laws, repeal things that we're moving for the future, that we're trying to do for the future. And the electrical vehicles mandate is something that the Conservatives keep on running to Canadians and trying to scare them with, saying, like, you're not going to be able to buy a gas car and all that kind of stuff. Well, yes, in 2035, Canada has set a goal that by 2035, all cars that are produced in Canada will be electric vehicles. It doesn't mean you won't be able to drive your gas vehicle, or if there are some used vehicles, the gas vehicles, that you will not be able to purchase them. They're not banning gas cars, which is how the Conservatives are calling it. But we want to transition away from having to use gas cars, which means we have to set a target at some point for people to reach, by which we can have all electrical vehicles being made. Now, a lot of people are also making the other counter argument also that our electrical system grid is not at where it needs to be able to have that type of economy in 2035. Again, that may or may not be so, but if we are going to build strong, build fast, build big, like the Prime Minister keeps on saying, then that's probably one of those projects of national importance that will be taken care of. So right now you have a whole bunch of people, like for the digital services tax, like for anything of that site, that type, that their first reaction is, oh my God, this is going to make it so much harder to do business. Just don't do that. Don't make our lives more complicated. Remove it now. There's no reason for Canada to remove that electrical vehicle mandate. We can do the same thing that we just did with the NATO summit. We can say, well, listen, we're keeping it in place for now, and in 5 years, we will review it and see where we are. But you leave the target there for them to reach, and then make it like 5 years down the road to, because if you say just 2 years, then that gives them permission to drag their heels and not to do anything. If it's 5 or 6 years, oddly enough, this is a situation where a little uncertainty, because we've been talking about certainty, could actually help. Not knowing whether or not there will be an adjustment downwards or a repeal at that time does make it such that it is in their interest to at least get started and give it a good go. So I'm hoping we don't drop that. The other portion of that, however, and this might affect trade with China when we're talking about the tariffs on seafood and the tariffs on canola and other types of products, agricultural products, is because when President Biden slapped an extra tariff on EVs from China, we did as well to keep that consistent. If we, within the North American industry, if we decide to no longer do that, to be as cooperative with the United States on that front, which of course could generate some consequences from Trump. He could lose his mind as well. But should we decide not to do that or to get out of that, that probably would be something that would be very beneficial with regard to our negotiations with China to reduce those tariffs, because those tariffs were in response to us tariffing their EVs and joining the United States in that. So we actually might get much more quick action from China by removing that tariff than we're ever going to get from Trump. Because even if we sign something with him, the very next day he can turn around, okay, yes, but now you've cheated on this and I'm going to slap a tariff on that. Right? The only bit of hope, and that is a point that someone made, is that when Trump did sign NAFTA 2, is for the rest of the time that he was president in his first term, he did respect it. That might be the only saving grace. But right now, I'm functioning in a reality where I assume that because, second term, and he doesn't really have to fight for a third mandate. He might try to take one, but he doesn't have to fight for one because technically he should be ineligible to go for a third one. So he can do his worst now and doesn't have to worry about re-election. So that's the thing. That's the different variable in the equation at the moment that would make me be much more reticent to believe that I still live in a world that I can sign a deal with Donald Trump that he will respect, at least for the rest of this term. A lot of more business-minded people who tend to be more ideologically conservative seem to believe that there still exists a world in which you can sign a deal with the United States that actually has value and offers any predictability. I'm not convinced. I've now moved to the I'll believe it when it's done and when it lasts camp, rather than I'll just believe it once it's signed. You pull the rug out from under people because you break trust. People are going to be more skeptical. It's just the natural consequence. It's basic human nature here. The other thing that the government could do as well is obviously reinstate that rebate and make it more attractive than just $5,000. And that would definitely, in that case, boost sales of electric vehicles. And then that would change the market, make the prospect of the EV mandate a little more attractive. So they don't necessarily have to kill the mandate. They could do other things. They could work on the other side of it to increase the attractiveness of that product for the Canadian public. Exactly, with greater rebates, for example. And I would assume, given that Mark Carney stance on things, environment and climate change in his book Values and all that kind of stuff, that might be something that we can look forward to. Between January and March, zero-emissions vehicles made up only 8.11% of all new vehicle sales in Canada, a drop from 16.5% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2024, Statistics Canada data shows. Now, that could be, again, because the rebate is not there. It could also just be because more people are keeping their money dry and not necessarily are their powder dry and are not upgrading their vehicles right now, given instability. They don't know if they're going to lose their jobs soon, so maybe not time to take on a new lease or take on a new payment plan for a new vehicle if the old vehicle or the current vehicle is still working well enough. Right? These might be purchases, big capital purchases delayed, which also affects the economy. And, output, economic output and GDP and all that kind of stuff. The monthly share of new vehicles sales going to EVs never dropped below 10.65% in 2024 and peaked at 18.27% in December. And this is data made available by Statistics Canada. In April of 2025, the month for which Statistics Canada has the most recent data, EV sales dropped to 7.53% of all new vehicle sales in Canada. Again, sort of leading me to believe that a big portion of this, because that's a big drop for just the $5,000 rebate not being in effect anymore, that would seem to lend more credence to my suspicion that it has just more to do with people feeling less certain about their economic future and therefore not willing to make that big investment at the moment or take on that big expense. Environment Minister Julie de Brussen confirmed last month the government was working to bring back an EV rebate of some kind, there you go, but wasn't sure yet if it would restore the old program or be something new. The government's EV sales mandate states that at least 20% of new light-duty vehicles offered for sale in 2026 must be zero emission. That share is supposed to rise each year until it reaches 100% in 2035. So, see, this is a part I did not know, that it's not just 100% by 2035, but there are some targets and goals structured and laddered in along the way, which creates additional incentive and lets people know what they need to do in order to be able to plan for the next 10 years. Quote, "There's no way that manufacturers are going to be able to meet their targets for 2026, Adams said. That's okay. You don't have to repeal the entire mandate. You can make an adjustment for the early years if that's the case, given you can make a very plausible and credible claim that, well, this was one we thought that the auto industry was going to be stable, but given what Trump has done, that has affected our ability to meet those targets, the early targets, and you can lower those and then backload them a little bit when things get a little more stable or when we have taken more of the initial steps that are required to transition away from the United States and try to maintain some type of auto industry. So again, you can make those adjustments on the targets without having to repeal the mandate itself. Quote, "My sense of the Prime Minister is that he's a pretty pragmatic person, and I think he'd be wanting to work with the industry to remove a barrier or an irritant that was both costly and problematic, so that we can frankly focus on our efforts on the larger issue at hand, which is the trade relationship with the United States. Canada and the US are back at the bargaining table after Trump called a halt to trade talks over Canada's plan to impose a digital services tax on multinational tech firms, a plan the Carney government called off Sunday evening. Carney said he wants a new Canada-US trade deal in place by July 21st, and that if that deadline isn't met, he'll boost Canadian trade countermeasures, and he says specifically in a manner that reflects where talks are at that point. So there you go, kids and cups. A little overview of where we are on the promises and progress that's being made on the overall progress that's been made on the overall promise to diversify our trade and to diversify our partners. Again, pointing out certain gaps, however, we still don't know what the measures are for people affected, and we don't know what the measures are overall to support industries that have been affected. We're still at the portion of talking about repealing and changing and modifying laws and targets and stuff like that, rather than that other portion. And as I mentioned, there could be a PR issue brewing if there's not much visible action on the other side of this equation relatively soon, because people are suffering now. So hopefully we'll hear more about that in the coming weeks and days. And somebody's reminding Prime Minister Carney that there's a whole other element of this that has not seen much action yet. Okay. Now we must deal with conservatives, sadly. Kids and cubs. Conservatives, Pierre, and basically what I like to call the anti-everythings. Right? Everything's bad, everything's terrible, everything's a cave, everything's whatever. Right? There's some people who just delight in negativity. I saw something from Yves-François Blanchet of the Bloc Québécois the other day, and it just really, again, Kit Hugh really made it that point when he was talking about living in the eternal now. It's not just because Trump's imposing it, right? There, politically, that's also an advantage when you're constantly commenting only about the current nanosecond, while removing any responsibility or obligation to consider that there's a long game at play. It's very, very easy to be negative and poo-pooing on things all the time. But there's been some polling that has come out from the Angus Reid Institute. This was done between June 20th and 23rd with a total sample of 1,619 Canadian respondents. And it reveals the power of a constant negative drumbeat narrative, a constant, incessant, negative running commentary on everything that is being done. And they asked Canadians 3 statements, or they presented Canadians with 3 statements. 1, Canada offers a good quality of life. Canada is a good place to start a family, and Canada is a good place to start a business. And they divided the response by political affiliation: Liberals, Bloc Québécois, NDP, and Conservative Party of Canada voters who self-identify as these voters. And this is very, very, very revealing, kids and cubs. I will, whoops, sorry, I was looking to share the screen and I ended up taking myself off screen instead. Boy, making life tough for myself today. But here I will present. We'll look at this together, and I think I'm going to need to make this just a little bit bigger. So let's see if I can do that. No, this is going to be not very possible, unfortunately. But the first question here is: Canada offers a good quality of life. And if you're just looking at the length of the bars, this is Liberal voters, Bloc Québécois voters, NDP voters, and then Conservative Party Canada voters. And you see that the bar saying that they agree with this statement doesn't extend anywhere near as far. And the red bar is how their negative feelings about that. They're way much more negative than the average Canadian that votes for any of the other 3 parties. And you'll see that that is consistent for all the statements. And when you get to the last one in particular, that says Canada is a good place to start a business, it's an abysmal rate of approval. So Canada offers a good quality of life. 88% of Liberals, 86% of Bloc Québécois voters, and 83% of NDP voters agree that Canada offers a good quality of life. But the Conservatives, only 52% of them believe that. Again, in your own echo chamber, being told every single day, Canada sucks, Canada's broken, Canada sucks, Canada's broken, we do nothing right. Trudeau's a disaster, Trudeau's a disaster, Carney's even worse, Carney's even worse, oh my God. That's what it does. Being spoon-fed a daily, consistent, and constant diet of negativity has about 31 to 36% more conservatives than, or fewer conservatives than Liberals, Bloc Québécois, NDP voters believing that Canada offers a good quality of life. On the negative side, if you look at it, 8% of Liberals say that Canada does not offer a good quality of life. For the Bloc Québécois, it's 4. They don't want to be Canadian. They think that Canada, they're the party that believes the least that Canada doesn't offer a good quality of life. The NDP at 9%, Conservatives 42% believe that Canada does not offer a good quality of life. Canada is a good place to start a family. 89% of Bloc Québécois voters, 83% of Liberal voters, 79% of NDP voters, only 50% of Conservative voters. On the negative side, from the Bloc Québécois, again, only 4% believe that it is not true. 10% of Liberals, 11% of NDPs, 42% of Conservatives. Canada is a good place to start a business. 65% of the Bloc Québécois, 61% of Liberal voters, and 57% of NDP voters believe that that's true, but only 26% of Conservative voters believe that's true. If you look at it on the negative aspect, 19% of Bloc Québécois voters think that Canada is not a good place to start a business, 15% for Liberals and NDP voters, but 59% for Conservative voters. So, when one party spends its entire existence telling its base that Canada is broken, regardless of how good or bad things are and whatever the actual reason are for things being good or bad, this is how it shows up. So if you're wondering, it's like, these conservatives seem to be living on an entirely different planet. Because this is what it is. Echo chambers and that whole entire industry. The counter signals and the Juno Newses and all of those and the Keans and all of those constantly just trashing Canada and telling people how miserable and awful and terrible things are here. People believe that. If you're fed a steady diet of it, they will believe that. Now, fortunately, the overall, overwhelming majority of Canadians from other parties are seeing through this rhetoric. But the Conservative Party of Canada is the second most popular party in Canada. That's a significant chunk of our fellow neighbors, who are being rewired to believe things that are just not true, and to be predisposed to look at everything being done through the darkest lens possible. This negativity that you're seeing is not an accident. It's being manufactured. That's very frightening. I wish that there were truth and advertising laws when it came to politics. I really do. Because this is toxic and very divisive rhetoric that is not serving us in any way, shape, or form. With regard to this, Pyapalyev has recently made a couple of statements. This one is particularly bad and disingenuous in terms of its content. But I think it was on Canada Day that he put this out. Said, as recently as 2 days ago, the finance minister insisted the digital services tax would proceed. Then the prime minister put his elbows down. You see where he's going with this already. And canceled the tax at the 11th hour. The tax is gone for good. And he doesn't know that. In exchange, the prime minister should insist that the U.S. immediately rescind softwood lumber tariffs. Really? We need to make gains for our workers in these talks. Canadians need certainty that Liberals would put Canada first and still talking Canada first, and defend Canadian sovereignty in these negotiations. To stand up from Canada from a position of strength, the government must take emergency action to bolster Canada's economy. Fully repeal the no pipelines law, the industrial carbon tax, the tanker ban, which doesn't exist because we just had a tanker leave from Kitimat, the emissions cap, the EV mandate, and axe the capital gains tax on reinvestment in Canada. As always, Conservatives are ready to help to get a good deal for Canada. Okay, let's go through the bullshit here, because this is an unserious comment from an unserious man. First, there's a lot of industries that are being affected, right? Steel and aluminum have tariffs of 50% at the moment. Auto sector, people have lost jobs. Yes. What's the one thing he's concerned about immediately now? Softwood lumber tariffs. Because of course, Canada's top lumber sexual is still focused on wood. And I'm not sure why he's limited that to wood only. Like, we removed the digital sales tax, you got to remove tariffs on softwood lumber. Why that? Why only that? Why not more industries? Because right now he's revealing what his trade position would have been. That's all he would have asked for. And when you consider right now he's running for a seat in Battle River Crowfoot, I'm not sure how big the lumber industry is in that riding or in Alberta specifically. It's not the most strategic. Then, if we actually were in a position to make demands for the sheer public theater of it, the way Taco Tuesday does he not think that we would have just kept the digital services tax then? no, we're not going to remove it. Get your ass back to the table, is what we would have said. So for him to turn around and say, well, yes, well, we're going to remove the digital services tax, but you got to remove the tariffs on softwood lumber. Do you not think that these people across the table would have laughed at us? They demanded a gesture of goodwill in exchange for them repeatedly having punched us in the face and punched first. This is merely performative. He would have gotten laughed out of the room had he made that demand. The Prime Minister gave a 30-day deadline to come with a deal, or else counter tariffs would come into effect. That's the demand we are currently working on. Pierre appears to have forgotten that, and he clearly hopes that you have too. In the third paragraph, when he's talking about standing up for Canada from a position of strength, you will notice that his position of strength requires us to fully repeal the No Pipelines Law, the industrial carbon tax, the tanker ban, the emissions cap, the EV mandate, and axe the capital gains on reinvestments in Canada. So in other words, to deal from a position of strength, he lists basically all the other ways he's willing to pre-capitulate to Trump. From a position of strength, right? It sounds more like he wants to negotiate for Canada while he's bent over a barrel. Not impressive here. As always, Conservatives are ready to help get a good deal for Canada has got to be the joke of the day. Because I'm old enough to remember a time when we had Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and he was still Prime Minister, and he had a very important meeting with the leaders of all the federal parties, which is something that usually doesn't happen. And he asked every single one of them to go through their contact list of everybody they knew in the United States and do whatever they can to try to get them to put in a good word for Canada. Pierre decided not to lift a finger on that front, and the Conservative Party decided not to lift a finger on that front, and absolutely everything that has come out of their mouths or their socials since then has been essentially bad-mouthing or trashing Canada and or its leaders. The use of "as always" in that sentence is particularly insulting and hilariously tragic, because what he really means, and their track record proves it, is never as usual Conservatives are ready to help get a good deal for Canada. Not as always. There's been absolutely no evidence of them being anywhere helpful with regard to that. So whether it's Christmas or Canada Day, he just can't take a day off from trashing Canada. The man has absolutely no impulse control. An unserious statement from an unserious person. It's ridiculous. Then, and this one, for those of you who have respect for our military, this one here you will find particularly offensive. And I am so sorry, kids and cubs, that I'm going to have to show this to you. But I will, because you have to see it. The utter shamelessness of this one will blow your mind. Now, this here, kids and cubs, is performative bullshit. Shameless of the highest order. So if you're sitting down and if you've put your drinks down so that you don't throw them at your screen, here we go, kids and cubs.
We don't know his name. We know he died on the battlefields of the First World War. He was probably a young man, had a mother and a father, people who loved him. those who waited for him to come home but never had a chance to bury him or say goodbye. But about 80 years later, Canada brought him home. His remains laid to rest at the tomb of the unknown soldier beside our National War Monument. This headstone, which was his in Europe before he was brought home, is preserved here at the Canadian War Museum. It is a haunting reminder that what we have in this country was never guaranteed. Freedom was never free. Prosperity was never freely or easily handed down. Those who came before us earned it by sacrificing everything so that we could inherit something. Their names are mostly unknown to us. They are the quiet heroes, just like so many other heroes, not only in the armed forces, but over time and across our land. The pioneers who worked the land, the builders who built on the land, the entrepreneurs who enriched the land, and the soldiers, sailors, and airmen who protect the land. Today, we thank the mostly unknown heroes of our country, the entrepreneurs and explorers, the adventurers and artists, the warriors and workers, the pioneers and patriots. Like them, and like this unnamed but never forgotten hero, we must fight for our country, for a country that is strong, self-reliant, sovereign, and stands on its own feet. For the promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That hard work gets you a great life. For a country that is worthy of the countless and even nameless patriots from whom we inherited all we have. So this Canada Day, let us be grateful for all those who came before us. And let us be worthy of our inheritance by working and fighting every day to pass on a country that is even better to those who will come after us. Thank you very much, and happy Canada Day.
Okay. Give you a couple of moments to recover. Yeah. This guy just cannot help wrapping himself in the flag and in the valor of the military. Let us remind ourselves that this is the man who sat on the government benches and said absolutely nothing as we cut defense spending to 0.9% of GDP. We have Grizzly. Remember, this is the party that completely decimated help to veterans, giving certain veterans a full lump sum payment when they were dealing with issues of PTSD and saying, hey, if you blow it all and happen to end up homeless, not our problem anymore. Remember, this is the guy who during the convoy, when people were desecrating the tomb of the unknown soldier, to which he is referring here, and using it as a pretext to talk about other unknown heroes, and desecrating it by flying American flags and urinating on it, was cheering for them just to own the libs. And that's the Canada Day message he puts out. Shameless, disgustingly shameless. More unserious commentary from an unserious man. The points he's making are good, but coming out of that trash mouth? Come on. Mr. Grizzly, good morning. How's your mental health today? Oop, not sure if he has audio for us. So yes, I'm just gonna.
Don't know if you can hear me at all. The upstream connection here is not very good, so I'll have to hotspot from my phone for tomorrow. But I'm about to go to a meeting in about 5 minutes. I just wanted to pop in quickly and say hey, and I'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye, my friend. So again, see, Mr. Grizzly taking time because he cares about the DAMFAM just to say hi. Love that guy. Love that guy. Brother from another mother. So yeah, I saw that And immediately, I popped out of the seat and hit the ceiling because I just could not believe that someone would have, he in particular, would have the, well, actually, no, let me rephrase that. I do believe that he would have the gall, but the utter shamelessness, and to do it on Canada Day as well. Here we have some images by Sue Connell at Sun Time, SUNN_TIME on Twitter, about exactly what he was cheering on at the time of the convoy. See some yellow snow here, people dancing on the tomb, showing up with the American flag. And we needed people there in order to ensure. We needed to put people there to ensure that this site was not being desecrated any further. I just, yeah. The utter shamelessness of it is revolting. I would love to hear what Bonnie Critchley would have to say about that. And clearly that was pre-recorded because he was in Alberta on Canada Day, right? He wasn't there. So this is definitely planned and premeditated. And yeah, I'm just, it's like, should we celebrate our unsung heroes? Absolutely. Should we recognize them? Absolutely. But he's not the guy. He's just not the guy. Speaking of Bonnie Critchley, since we have a little bit of an aside, she is gaining some profile and some traction. I believe on July 18th, our good friend Laura Babcock will be having an interview with her for the O Show. So more national level visibility for her, which will be great. But in the National Post yesterday, there was an article that says, meet the military trailblazer who's gunning for Pierre Poilievre in rural Alberta by-election. Bonnie Critchley says she's running as an independent because she's grown disillusioned with partisan politics. So kids and cubs, the National Post of all have decided to give Bonnie Critchley some profile. So there we go. Very interesting article there. If you have the opportunity to take a read of it, please do. I'm sure that it gives an opportunity for her to say more about what it is that she believes and able to bring it more to a national audience. And listen, as we mentioned, it is a by-election, but because it's for a federal seat, Canadians from coast to coast to coast are able to donate. So a piece like this can definitely help with that. So, so good to see her getting some traction in the national press. Meanwhile, in Alberta, for those who are wondering, there's some stuff going on provincially. It seems that some ex-UCP MLAs are attempting to revive Alberta's Progressive Conservative Party. So there seems to be some potential fracturing of the Conservative vote in Alberta on a provincial basis starting to happen. So that's a little interesting, and hopefully we'll have more to present to you on that in a future show, because I see that we are running short on time here. The other thing I wanted to show to you, kids and cubs, because I showed you something a little dismal and shameless. Now, of course, I'm going to show you a little something that might bring you a little joy instead, because there are some signs perhaps that Canadians might be starting to tire of the conservative shtick. And I see that. Yes, Kit Linda, exactly. Right now, Bonnie Critchley is the only name on the list of candidates. She got her paperwork in promptly. So if you look at the Elections Canada website, she's the only one that's listed. So Pierre, who really wanted this by-election, is still not officially a candidate yet. Interesting. Interesting. All right. Now, some better news that might make you a little happier. So again, of course, our usual caveat that polls are just an expression of where we are in a moment of time. They're not necessarily a predictor of the future, and not to look at any individual poll, but to work with the aggregators. That is probably better off to get an overall sense and to look at a trend. So, for Canada, vote projection here, we noticed that around election day, it was Liberals 44, Conservatives 41. There seems to be a gap opening. Right now, they're showing Liberals 45, Conservatives 40. So, again, nationally, it seems that there's a little bit of a decline starting with regards to support of the Conservative Party itself. Which of course brings my beaver heart a little bit of joy. If we move to seat projection, we're looking at around post-election day. Canada, the Liberals had 169 and the Conservatives 143. Well, each of them, according to this now, if there was an election to be held today, would see a 10-seat swing. The Conservatives would gain 10. The Conservatives would lose 10, dropping to 133, but the Liberals would gain 10, rising to 179, and thus putting them in majority territory. So right now, the Liberals have a 26-seat lead on the Conservatives, or at least post-election day data. And if an election was to be held today, that gap would widen to 46 seats. That doesn't augur well for Pierre, who has a leadership review coming in January. The odds of winning the most seats, as close as it got post-election, was around June 1st, where the Liberals were at 70% and the Conservatives were at 30%. Now, it's 81% for the Liberals and 18% for the Conservatives in terms of odds of getting the most seat. This is another data point that might sharpen some minds when it comes to a leadership review vote. And finally, odds of an election outcome since the election, if it was to happen again, as close as it got post-election day, also June 1st, Liberal majority 49%, Conservative majority 12%. If an election were held today, the odds of a Liberal majority have increased to 63% and a Conservative majority 4%. Which has a lot of people online saying, hey, since we're doing one by-election, why don't we just run the whole engineer way for the government to fall so that we can have another federal election and just get that majority in silence forever? I can understand that sentiment. Taking that action would probably quickly change some Canadian minds as well. So, just because the opportunity is there in theory doesn't mean that actually pulled that trigger that would result in good things for you. So you have to be a little careful when you're making those types of moves, because it can backfire on you. So, but it seems that there is no love lost here, and that Canadians might be getting a little tired of the shtick, or just, really noticing that they like what they've got when it comes to Prime Minister Carney. Now, here's the part that I find particularly interesting, because that's nationally. But what if we look at Alberta specifically on the federal level? And this is where I had an idea. Now, again, these are not huge numbers, right? But it just gives an indication. Federal vote projection in Alberta around election day, the Conservatives had 64% and the Liberals 28%. If an election was held today, the Conservative vote has dropped by 4% to 60, and the Liberals have risen to 31%. And the Liberals haven't been over 30% in Alberta in a long, long, long time. And if an election were held today, what would that mean in seats? Conservatives would drop from 34 to 31 seats in battleground Alberta, and the Liberals would rise from 2 to 5. Again, small numbers, but enough that 4% drop for the Conservatives in federal vote protection, combined with a 3% increase for the Liberals, results in 3 more seats, or Liberals more than doubling the 2 seats that they have in Alberta. It's not a big swing, but it is enough to make a bit of a difference. Those 3 extra seats would bring the Liberals to 172, which would be majority. Could you imagine the irony if we started over today and we had an election and the majority came from the 3 seats in Alberta? Conservatives' heads would explode. But again, another data point that may sharpen Conservative minds as they look to whether or not Pierre Poilievre is their future. So, yeah, just wanted to put that out there. And like I said, we're microdosing hope. So it'll be interesting to see over time whether or not these poll results continue in that direction. If we're looking at overall polls as well, as you know, we've been reporting on Nanos polling that has been showing that the gap between the Conservatives and the Liberals as a party has definitely been increasing since the Nanos research show that soon after the election that it was Liberals +3 and then Liberals +1 up until about May 9th. And then the May 30th result that came in, up until May 23rd, and then the May 30th result that came in showed Liberals +6. And the June 6th result, Liberals +10. The June 13th result, Liberals +12. And then the June 20th, saying Liberals +14, which was just confirmed with the June 27th data that was released, saying that the Liberals have a 14% lead over the Conservatives with Nanos. Abacus data has been amazingly stable, showing Liberals just +3 and not showing a gap. But now we have gotten new information from Main Street Research, which has an A- rating. Nanos has an A rating, and Abacus has an A-. So considered equally as reliable as Abacus data. And Main Street Research is the first polling company that is showing that the trend seems to be more towards what Nanos is indicating, because they are showing that the Liberals have opened up a 9-point lead over the Conservatives. Liberals 47, Conservatives 38, NDP 6, Greens 3, Bloc 3. I'm a little interested. The NDP number is really all over the place because Nanos still has the NDP at 13. But Main Street has it at 6 and Abacus has it at 7. So there. But with regard to the Conservative number, Abacus still has the Conservatives at 39, whereas Main Street has them at 38, which is similar, but Nanos has them at 31. And the Liberal number, Abacus has them at 42, Main Street has them at 47, and Nanos has them at 45. So Nanos indicating a 14-point gap between Liberals and Conservatives, Main Street a 9-point gap, and Abacus a little closer, showing more of a closer race with 3. But now that we have 3 pollsters that have come out since then, There's also Ecos that came out a little earlier, June 1st, showing Liberals plus 12. So we'd have to see a little more updated data to see if that has remained. And if we look at the other, Spark Advocacy came out, but that's May 28th, so that's still early. The Liberals plus 2, and that was still in the era where all the posters that had been reporting showed a Liberal lead between 0 and 3% only, and the larger numbers only started coming up a few days later, with Ecos being the first one showing Liberals plus 12. So there are 3 major pollsters showing that the gap is widening and widening quickly. So when you put all those data points together, hopefully that is a sign that Canadians might be tiring of the conservative shtick. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of our episode today. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Now, if you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode, kids and cubs, because you might be very, very busy and on the go, life is hard today and life demands a lot of your attention. And of course, if you're an engaged citizen, even more so. Well, if you don't have time to listen to us live here or later on our YouTube channel, we are portable. So take us with you. If you scan that QR code, made available thanks to the generous contribution of the Ray Girl, that will bring you to our pod page. And if you're listening, you go to podpage.com/thetruenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you, goes directly to your favorite podcast feed. You don't even have to go looking for us. And if you're listening to us on podcast and happen to have the ability to give us stars and reviews, please do, because that helps us with the algorithm. Thank you for that. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, you can surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. We had a little bit of extra advertising that we purchased, and it is resulting in some new subscribers for us. Before we started the show, we were at 18,900. So help us get to 20,000 if you could by going over there and giving our subscribe button a little tickle. And while you're there, why not click on like and share as well? Spread the good word. Thank you very much for your help. If you would like to help us in yet another way, because you like our content, you find it informative and maybe even a little entertaining, and would like to encourage us to do more, well, hey, shake it for tips. I work hard for the money. If you would like to offer us an expression of enthusiastic encouragement in order to help us with the financial costs that we incur to bring this show to you, we would be very grateful for your support via a donation to our coffee page, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And if you go there or scan that QR code that appeared if you're watching, that will bring you to the emergency hydration fund, where you can do your bit to make sure that you keep your favorite beaver moist. Because, as you've seen on the show, dry beaver is a terrible thing. So if you are able to give some help, we really do appreciate that very much. And if you're not able to, please do not worry, because the gift of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And we like to hear from you. So please write to us. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. Let us know what you think about the show. And if you would like to make a totally buy Canadian donation, then that's the email address you can do to send us a bank transfer, so that it goes from your bank to our account, with us getting 100% of your donation and no American CE Tech Pros, especially since we're not imposing the digital services tax on them. Why give them more of your money, right? Buy Canadian. So any contribution via that way is also very much appreciated. If you want to reach us on our socials, at True Eager, at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, on the Twitter, that we really appreciate. Please let us know what you think. If you want to join us on our original home on the web, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, please go there. Sometimes we have longer pieces and more stuff that we don't put on other socials that are on that one, because we try to give a little extra content there when we can, because those are really original fans when we were just in blog form. So I tried to take. So there's lots going on there, and more members of the DAMFAM with which to interact who are just amazing there as well. And if you happen to be listening on our YouTube page, either live or later, please down here below leave some comments. Let us know what you think. We do read everything, even though we can't answer everyone. And all of your comments and all of your financial contributions do go back into the show to make it better. And we appreciate all of your support. Clearly, I have blown through the 2-hour mark, so I'm not going to rush it. And kids and cubs, because democracy is something that you do. Well, there's some very important initiatives going on right now. Of course, we mentioned the Red Cross thing, but Thomas Lukasik in Alberta, as we mentioned, has the first approved question under the new referendum or citizens initiative rules that Danielle Smith has put in place. And he's at the point now where they will be soon going out to collect signatures. So if you are there, please make sure that you take the time to add yours to the list to indicate that you would like that the more positive question about Canada remaining, Alberta remaining in Canada rather than separating, being the question that's being asked. That still needs to be able to get on the ballot, and they will need signatures, 200,000 at least. Again, I still need to do some research to see if there's a requirement that some of them come from different areas. There's also, I got sort of ear to the ground that Danielle Smith is going to be presenting more details about how that happens tomorrow, because of course that's how she celebrates Canada, by presenting on U.S. Independence Day how it is that we can work to break up Canada. Yay. But don't call her a traitor, though. She's very touchy about that. Very, very touchy. So basically, those rules will come out, and we will know more about how that process goes along. But 200,000 signatures, and probably more, because there will probably be, if Danielle behaves much like Republicans in the United States behave, I'm sure that when those signatures come in, she's going to be trying to move mountains and the moon and the stars and all the oceans and everything to try to find a way to say that certain signatures are not valid. So we probably will need many more than 200,000 to make sure that we get over the line. Basically, signing in numbers too great to manipulate will probably be required, because she's a little shifty and duplicitous and underhanded, I think would be fair to say. So make sure that you are doing your bit there. Very, very important initiative. And we thank Mr. Lukasik for doing the hard work of democracy and being the first to get his paperwork in. Again, as Lisa said on her TikTok, attention to detail. Interesting that both the Alberta Prosperity Project didn't get their question in first, and Pierre Poilievre is still not technically, officially a candidate for Battle River Crowfoot. They seem to want it so bad, but are late on the paperwork. There seems to be people who want other things more, that they got their paperwork in first. Interesting. Oh well. Maybe there's a sign there. Maybe not. Who knows? Words of wisdom, kits and cubs. As much as the Conservatives try to get us to bypass the logic center by putting out shameless content or unserious content, that unfortunately we do have to spend time refuting, because as those polling numbers showed, there are some Canadians that are very eager and that want to believe the narrative, the extremely negative and toxic narrative that they're putting out there. Just remember, it's not easy, but breathe. Just breathe. I think I need one of those screaming yoga classes. It's just breathe in serenity, scream out. Oh man. Listen, they are trying us. And that's the objective. They want us to react. They want us to say things in an emotional state that are reactionary and maybe a little over the top so that they can point to it and lead their base to it and say, see, this is what they think about us. See, that's why you got to vote for us. And we just can't give them that ammunition. So it takes a certain amount of discipline to not want to react to everything that they say and fly off the handle and hit the ceiling. But sometimes there are things like that video about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier that are just so particularly shameless that they just need to be called out. So try, again, when you're reading their content and you see, you feel the cortisol rising, a couple of breaths, know that that message was designed that way in order to solicit that particular reaction. And don't give it to them. Don't give it to them. All right, kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And when we come back, we'll have a little bit of news about some Canadians who have made us proud. But until then, I need a little bit of audience participation. So on the count of 3, kids and cubs, and all of the members of the DAMFAM, if you could say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. In 1, 2, 3. Oh, yes. Oh, that is lovely. Heard a little tremolo in there. I must oblige, as your queen. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Hey there, kids and cubs. Also, since we're talking about reaching us, the members of the DAMFAM on their own and of their own initiative have started a site in the Discord app that you might want to use, that they keep the conversation going there. So I'm not exactly sure what it is that you need to look for, but when you go there, and I need to go check it out myself today, which I will. But yes, apparently there is some Beaver Lodge activity or DAMFAM activity on Discord. So if you would like to keep the conversation going, please check us out over there, and maybe we'll get a little bit if there's a specific name that people have to look for, kids and cubs, please do let me know what it is, and I will be able to share it here in the audio for those who are listening to us there. A little bit of news of Canadians who make us proud, kids and cubs. Over the past little while, there's been a lot of stuff going on. Our Team Canada 3-on-3 women's volleyball team, who we were talking, not volleyball, sorry, basketball team, who we were talking about over the course of last week, ended up taking the bronze medal at the World Cup. They defeated number 15, Japan, 18-6 in a playing game, then upset number 4, Spain, 11-10 in the quarterfinals. They lost 21-15 to the eventual winners from the Netherlands in the semifinal, but defeated Poland 21-9 for the bronze. So very well done for that team there. In also at the AmeriCup basketball 5-on-5 women's national team, they defeated number 7 El Salvador and defeated Argentina, lost to Brazil, but then won their match yesterday and have advanced to the playoffs, which is good for them. And let's see how far they go. I believe they won their first playoff match, and if I'm not mistaken, their next one is against the United States, so they got a bit of a tough draw there. But they've been doing very well. And in volleyball, the North Central America and Caribbean Volleyball Confederation's women's under-19s teams were playing right here in Kingston, actually, over the course of last week, and Team Canada emerged from that tournament with the bronze medal. So congratulations to all of our athletes that have been representing us very well on the world stage. And of course, Kids and Cubs, I'm a big tennis fan, and it was a bit of a tougher day at Wimbledon yesterday. Gabriel Diallo, who's been having a fantastic season, unfortunately got a terrible draw. A lot of Canadians got a terrible draw at Wimbledon this year. And the second round match was against world number 5 Taylor Fritz. It was a very entertaining match, went 5 sets. But ultimately, close to the end, Diallo, who was playing well, lost a little bit of steam, unfortunately, and lost in 5 sets. But was a very, very good match and very promising because he only has one win against a top 20 player, and that was against Cerundolo at the French Open, who was number 18th in the world on clay, which was a big win. So taking on the number 5 in the world was a bit of a tall task on the day, but he's definitely shown that he's very, very close and playing very well. And there's a lot to cheer for there. Leila Annie Fernandez unfortunately also lost her second round match. She's been in a little bit of a slump lately, but to a grass court specialist, Laura Sigmund from Germany, who, even though lower ranked, still a grass court specialist and is a tricky player. So a tough loss there. Felix Auger-Aliassime's match yesterday against Jan-Lennard Struff from Germany was interrupted because nightfall. They were playing outside and there wasn't enough light, so that will continue today. And Gabriela Dabrowski, our world famous doubles player, along with her partner Erin Routliffe, is definitely playing in the doubles tournament. She had taken some time off the last year and this year. I had only learned yesterday that she had received a cancer diagnosis. So I hope that she is doing much better. She seems to be doing better given that she's playing on the courts again. But they are ranked number 2 in the tournament, and they have won their first match and advanced to the second round. Hopefully they can go all the way to the final like they did last year. And that would be a great result for them. All right. And of course, Victoria Mboko is still in play in singles, and her match will be tomorrow, having upset number 25 in the world, Magdalena Fresh of Poland, in her first round match. She's ranked 97th in the world, so taking on the 25th player in the world at a Grand Slam and netting a win is a very huge achievement, and hopefully she can keep it going. And just to come back on what I was saying about the AmeriCup women, the final game was against the Dominican Republic, which they won, and they've made the playoffs. Their first match will be against Colombia, and lining up for a match against the United States in the semifinal. So there we go, Kids and Cubs. That's all the information I have for you today. Please have a most wonderful and beaverific day, and we will see you tomorrow. All right? Amour et bisous.